So recently I got a call to tell me my order for my Prodigio Pros has come in. This guy, which I'm very excited about because I love the Prodigio Pro. This is not going to be a review of the Prodigio Pro because one, I'm an athlete for La Sportiva and I'm pretty biased. But if you read any and all the reviews of the Prodigio Pro, you know that this is basically the best shoe ever created, which I also agree with. Now, what's funny is I actually just received this pair of Prodigio Pro. I ordered them in May. It is now December. And the reason why it took so long is these things sold so well, I couldn't get my hands on it. As an athlete, I couldn't get my hands on the Prodigio Pro. So a 7-month wait is quite a long wait for a new pair of shoes, which means I've been using the pair of Prodigio Pros I got last spring since then. And since then, this pair of Prodigio Pro is now thoroughly beat up. It has gone well over its expected lifespan, but you know what? I'm still using it and I'll probably still use it before I switch to a new pair. But I thought it'd be a really cool idea to make a little video just touring the Prodigio Pro and seeing how it's fared through an entire season of running. And of course, if you know me, I'm not a fair weather runner. I love trails, but I also love very technical off-trail travel. I love alpine travel. This is the shoe I was going to do Nolan's 14 in. This is the shoe that I did my collegiate loop unsupported FKT attempt in. I really think I've run this through the gauntlet of what someone would use a trail running shoe for. So let's go through the whole shoe, starting from the upper down to the outsole and see what we can find. So I have my right shoe in my hand right now. And one of the things that's standing out to me right now is this. My shoelace broke. So that's a pretty common occurrence and it has a very easy fix. Replace the shoelace. So Sportiva does use a fairly thin shoelace in most of its trail running shoes. So this isn't an uncommon occurrence to me. Usually what I do when I get a new pair of Sportiva shoes is I just replace the shoelaces right away. I knew I wanted to test the durability of this entire shoe from the get-go, so I kept everything as it was, including the shoelaces. But I think maybe a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, the shoelace broke, which I think is a reasonable time for a shoelace to last. But it did break, so I wanted to report it. Moving on to my left shoe, I did notice that one of the holes that you thread the shoelace in broke as well. And again, this happened maybe a month ago. And most likely this happened because I improperly tied my shoe. Now, what do I mean by that? Basically, what that means is when I went to tighten my shoelaces, I pulled up rather than out. And that just caused a lot of pressure to be put on that little eyelet, and eventually it did fail. So if I want to prolong the life of my shoe, I should probably just change my behavior and make sure I'm pulling out when I want to tighten my shoelace. So for right now, you can see what I did. I just used the eyelet that's found beside that top eyelet. Now, usually that eyelet is used when you want to make like a heel lock system. I don't use a heel lock system, so that eyelet was free. If you're considering using a heel lock system, my hot take is to consider not, because that heel lock system can put a lot of pressure on the top side of your foot, leading to bruising and all sorts of crazy problems that you want to avoid. Moving on to the upper, I'm really absolutely impressed on how the upper has fared through my entire summer and into the fall using the Prodigio Pro. The power wire upper that was very much touted in the advertising and marketing of the Prodigio Pro does seem to live up to its name in that it delivered a lot of breathability but kept a lot of durability. And with that, I'm super happy because I ran this through the ringer. Even the kind of faux toe cap, the faux rand you see here, that little plastic layer and the little toe bumper there are in excellent shape. I'm actually pretty incredibly pleased about that. Usually I'll have this little toe bumper split off and then I have to kind of repair it in some way. It never looks great, but the Prodigio Pro is looking fantastic still. The only durability issues I'm seeing in the Prodigio Pro's upper that I want to focus on is that little toe area, what I love to call the ollie area. you'll see that there is a little bit of damage from hitting rocks and whatever on the trail and on off, and there's a lot of fuzzing going on, and there is a little bit of damage that has happened to the upper in that area. That happens in most all the shoes I use, and usually what I do is I use a product called Seam Grip WP, and before I initially use the shoes, I usually apply a few very thin layers of Seam Grip WP onto that area just to reinforce that little toe, that ollie patch area. And Seam Grip WP is a product that you can find in most outdoor stores. Find it at REI, or if you can't find it anywhere, just buy it online. Basically used to repair waterproof gear like tents and jackets, but I use it a lot to repair shoes. If you've seen any of my other videos, you know I'm just like a super poster boy for this stuff. So we could still repair this shoe, it's just not gonna work as well. But all you wanna do is get some rubbing alcohol and clean the area a little bit, let it dry, and then take this product and just apply a thin layer of where you're seeing damage and just a little bit beyond that. Let that dry overnight and maybe repeat that once or twice again. But yeah, as it looks right now, this is not a stoppage of the shoe. I'd still use this shoe outside, at least on trail, but I think it's best to do the repair now before it gets worse. Okay, moving on to the inner, like the collar area is looking also pretty fantastic. I do see a little bit of wear and tear near that Achilles area. That's also pretty normal. But what I don't see is that the material has completely failed and that I have no padding there. But as it stands now, like it's definitely a 7-month-old shoe that's been used heavily, but it's still runnable. It's not going to irritate my Achilles area or cause me pain. So pretty incredible. This whole ankle collar area has been really, really comfortable and very cushy and doesn't have any really sharp edges that irritate my ankle region. So in that sense, the Prodigio Pro has been a really good design for my foot. So other than being, dirty, the Prodigio Pro has really done a great job holding up against someone like me, a larger runner who's a little bit more boisterous out there, who doesn't run on buffed trails. Let's go off trail and do lots of rocky, talusy stuff in the alpine. So we can move into the insole and then the midsole. It's really hard for me to gauge how much midsole crush there is. I'm sure there's some. After hundreds of miles, that makes sense. But I don't personally feel any. The midsole doesn't feel dead. In other words, if I visually inspect inside, I don't see any divots made by my ball of my foot or any of my toes. Using these when running, they just feel like they were new. I'm sure there's a difference of a few percentage of rebound or whatever. We can look at the insole and try to get an idea of what's going on with our midsole. And all I see are like, you can see where my toes are in the shoe, but that's just dirt. That's not dimension. And this insole is actually made of the same material as the midsole. And what I'm looking at is, again, really great durability. So that I'm super pleased of. And of course, this is a strobe-less shoe design, and I see a lot of like dirt that's stuck onto some of the adhesive. But again, it doesn't look like a lot of damage. So this is still a very runnable shoe. We're not going to be gardening it anytime soon. I think I'm just going to keep running. Turning our attention to the outsole, what's been a little bit of surprising to me is that the lugs on this shoe are still looking very good. Definitely some substantial lugs still happening on this shoe. Now that's surprising because this uses the friction white compound from Sportiva, and that's the most stickiest friction there is, but it's also the less durable just because you need a softer rubber to make it grippier. So we can compare this to a brand new Prodigio Pro and kind of gauge how much wear we have on those lugs. And I'm seeing personally maybe a millimeter or two have gone down on the lugs, but the lugs themselves are still effective. They're still going to grip onto the surface that I'm running on. So that was really surprising because I've definitely had different pairs of Sportiva shoes like the Mutant that still use that white friction rubber compound, and the lugs are completely gone, and I'm actually starting to get into the midsole. So for some reason, the Prodigio Pro hasn't given me that problem yet. So a great surprise, a positive surprise in that area. So that's the good. The bad is I'm actually seeing parts of the outsole coming off from the midsole. And let me show you what I'm talking about. If you look at this area right here where there's that aggressive cutout, right below it is where I'm seeing the outsole coming off. Just like that. Do you see this? The midsole and outsole are actually coming apart. But again, it's something that's happened in the last month or so. And given the age of the shoe and how much I've used it, isn't super surprising. Now, I wonder if partly this is from the design of the shoe where there's this aggressive cutout of the outsole that's there just to lose a few grams from the total weight of the shoe. I'm not sure. But again, guess what? This is actually repairable. So if you are having this problem yourself, grab a product called barge cement. I have some with me right now. This is a great product to use if you want to try to adhere your outsole to your midsole again. Basically, what you're going to want to do is clean both those interior areas of your midsole and outsole, again with some iso alcohol. And probably with this outsole, you'll see some of the midsole, all that white stuff is still attached to the outsole. I would take extremely fine grit sandpaper and try to just get it all out. Once you've done that, apply your barge cement to each surface area that you want to adhere. Let it dry for about 20 minutes. And what you're going to do is squeeze it together so it comes in contact and adheres. And then leave it overnight before you go running again. Maybe in the next video, I'll go through that process of repairing this shoe and see how it works myself. So yeah, color me impressed on how well the Prodigio Pro has lasted when paired with a runner like me, who's heavier than the average runner, who goes off trail more than the average runner, who gets into a lot more trouble in the mountains than the average runner. So the original pair of Prodigio Pros that I got, I think in April, have lasted so well. So I think I can squeeze a couple more weeks of running into the shoe before I switch to a brand new pair of Prodigio Pros. And that's important to me. I don't like products that are very wasteful. I don't like throwing things into the landfill until I've used them all up. And if I can repair a product before I get rid of them, all the better. All right, that's all I got today. Until I see you again, long may you range.